مشاهدينا الكرام، مرحبا بكم في مقابلة خاصة لصحراء ميديا مع السفير الأمريكي في موريتانيا لارياندري. مرحبا بكم. سعادة السفير، بداية كيف تقيمون العلاقات الموريتانية الأمريكية خاصة في حكم الرئيس دونالد ترامب؟ هل تغير شيء أو سيتغير؟
Our relations are excellent, and our relations make a partnership between the two countries. We have shared interests, shared priorities. I was nominated ambassador by President Obama, and he gave me 3 goals. It was first security, then prosperity, and then human rights and good governance. Security, prosperity for the American people and the Mauritanian people. Recently, I spent a month in Washington meeting Secretary Tillerson, meeting my White House colleagues, and they explained to me what my goals should be now under President Trump. So what are these new goals? Security, prosperity, human rights and governance, the same. And our cooperation with Mauritania, as far as our 2 governments, our 2 presidents, our 2 peoples, continues to be excellent in all respects.
سعادة السفير، منعت السلطات الموريتانية قبل أيام قليلة وفدا حقوقيا أمريكيا من دخول البلاد، وأصدرتم بيانا ينتقد هذا الفعل، هل سيكون لها تأثير على علاقات البلدين؟
Well, thank you for the question. I would like to talk about this incident, but the simple answer to your question is no. Our excellent relations are in the interests of the American people and the Mauritanian people, and that will continue. In our private lives, it is common for 2 close friends to sometimes have a different point of view, but that does not destroy the friendship. We have a different point of view concerning this American delegation, but that does not harm our friendship because it is a deep friendship based on shared priorities. Now, as to the visit of the delegation, I'd like to make 3 points. First, the Mauritanian government has every right to decide who enters their country and who is forbidden to enter their country, just as the United States government has the right to decide who enters the U.S. and who cannot enter the U.S. Now, speaking for the United States, sometimes we allow people to enter who should not, who have bad intention. Sometimes we do not allow people to enter even though their intentions are good. We make mistakes. I'm talking about the United States. So I want to make it very clear that the national sovereignty of this country, the political leadership making a decision of who enters and who does not, that is very normal, and we have nothing but respect for that. Now, as we prepared this trip, my colleague began speaking with the government. It was the Human Rights Commissioner was our main contact since July. And that continued once we had a series of meetings with government officials, the head of Tadamoon, the other ministers, and other agencies of government. We had formalized the program, and we knew all of the people in government we wanted to, for the delegation to meet, and we put that in a diplomatic note, which the government received and signed for on 30th of August. But the government had been in discussions with us on this trip since long before. So, why are we disappointed? In our statement, we said that we are disappointed. Why is that? I have been here for 3 years, and for 3 years, I have been talking to American civil society about the great accomplishments of this government in human rights, and especially the fight against slavery and its vestiges. The 2015 anti-slavery law, the anti-slavery courts that this government established, these are great accomplishments. This government has accomplished more in this area than any of its predecessors, but there is far to go. In my country, we share the diversity of population, and we share human rights challenges. Everyone knows that the United States has severe human rights challenges. And so what we are wishing to do is to share experiences, to learn from one another. And that was with this attitude that the delegation was coming here. This delegation was made up of leaders of the African American community and of the Muslim American community. We had, they are all from very high in society, have very responsible positions. They had received as their guest Mr. Boubacar Massoud of SOS Esclave, and that was in 2015. And they shared with him what they do as human rights campaigners in the United States to address this, the severe problems faced by the African American community in the US. Very high rates of imprisonment compared to the other groups in society, higher unemployment rates, higher poverty rates, things of that sort. And so these American campaigners from the African American community shared with Boubacar Massoud what they are doing to promote peace and better relations and better conditions for their component of American society. And then Boubacar Massoud invited them to come to Mauritania. This is typical of Mauritania hospitality. He was received, now he wants his friends to come here. So they told me that they have two purposes. One was to respond to Boubacar Massoud's invitation, and two, to learn about the achievements of the Mauritanian government. They had heard from me for 3 years about everything this government has accomplished in anti-slavery and also improving the bad aspects of the vestiges of slavery. All of the accomplishments of this government, they wanted to come and see for themselves. That is why most of their meetings were with government, or those close to government. Now, they were also meeting internationally known civil rights leaders from Mauritania. But I counted all of their meetings. Most were with government. We have that in our diplomatic note listing all the government meetings. I've taken long on this question because I want Mauritanians to understand that these individuals had very good intentions. They were sincerely interested in learning from Mauritania. They told me that this was a listen and learn trip. It was not a lecturing down trip, none of that. They have greatest respect for the country, the people, the government of Mauritania. And when asked to leave, they left, and they have not, they've only said positive and respectful things.
كيف ترون وضعية حقوق الإنسان في البلاد وما رأيكم بعمل المنظمات الحقوقية الموريتانية؟
From my arrival 3 years ago, I've encouraged for government and civil society to work together. I arrived in September of 2014. In December of 2014, working with the leadership of the ruling party, I invited to my home here 3 prominent civil society leaders, human rights leaders, and 3 prominent members of the ruling party. And we ate together and discussed for 6 hours. They prayed together. And that was at the beginning of my time here. It is in that spirit that I've conducted myself here, and my colleagues at the U.S. Embassy conduct themselves. We want to encourage that the government and civil society, they share the same goals for a better Mauritania, that they work together. Now, are there issues of human rights in Mauritania? Yes. Are there issues of human rights in America? Yes. We are 2 peoples with a lot of similarities in our diversity and much to learn from one another.
هل تدعمون بعض المنظمات الحقوقية الموريتانية مثل لجنة العبيد وإيراء؟
For SOS Esclave, we have great respect because they are a fine example of a civil society organization that works with government. They've been working closely with the anti-slavery courts. helping to prepare cases when people are identified who are living in dependent situations. SOS Esclav will give them training and help them find jobs. This is a very practical way of helping specific people. For much of the time that I have been here, speaking of IRA, their focus has been primarily international. And much of the time I've been here, their leaders have either been out of the country or imprisoned. So I haven't had the same opportunity to understand how they see their role as I have with SOS Esclav. But I do believe that it is for all members of civil society to show respect for the elected government of Mauritania. And I believe it is wise for governments to, whenever possible, find ways of working with civil society.
بالعودة إلى علاقات البلدين خاصة في مجال الإرهاب والإرهاب العابر للحدود، ما تقييمكم لجهود موريتانيا في هذا المجال؟ وهل الدعم الأمريكي للجيش الموريتاني مستمر؟
Mauritania has a story to tell the world. There are unfortunately many countries around the world who are suffering terrorist attacks. This country suffered terribly from 2005 to 2011. The government and its security forces were very successful in ending those attacks. Has the neighborhood got better? No. But thanks to God and for the great work of the Mauritanian government and its security forces, there have been no more attacks since 2011. Other countries need to learn from Mauritania's experience, both on the security side and on working with former radical extremists who have committed violence, on how to reform them, working with the religious leadership of this country. That is a story that everyone in countries that are suffering terrorist attacks need to know. Now, for our military-to-military cooperation, it continues. It is in the form of training both ways. That is, when our military trainers come here, they train the Mauritania military, and also there's work with law enforcement, and they receive training, especially on desert warfare, from the Mauritanian side. So it is two ways, and that cooperation changes. That training cooperation changes because as the Mauritanians learn certain military skills, then they go to the next level and the next level. They learn fast, and that is something all the trainers have told me. They haven't worked with another military that learns things as quickly as the Mauritanian one does. But aside from the training, there's also equipping and other ways to promote the security interests of Mauritanians and Americans.
ما رأيكم في القوة العسكرية التي شكلتها دول الساحل مؤخرا في قمة جامعة رؤساء هذه الدول بالرئيس الفرنسي إيمانويل ماكرون؟
The first thing to say about the Sahel G5 is that this government was principally responsible for creating it, for bringing the leaders of the other Sahel countries to Nouakchott, encouraging an agreement on a regional organization to serve the security and the economic interests of the people of this region. The wonderful thing about Mauritania is that it is 100% a Maghreb country. It is 100% a Sahel country. So that strategic location makes it possible for Mauritania to have a great positive influence on the region. Now, the idea of having a joint force, it's of note that the violent extremists do not observe any borders. So for the forces looking to protect the people of the region from these people who worship violence, they must not know borders either. And so the cooperation between the 5 countries for mutual defense is brilliant, and we are looking at every way that we can be supportive.
سياسيا تشهد الساحة السياسية حالة من القليان بعد الاستفتاء الأخير واعتقال أحد الشيوخ واستجواب آخرين. ما هو موقفكم مما يحدث في الساحة الموريتانية؟
Let me say, rather than talk about Mauritania's internal politics, let me point out a few things about the United States. We have changed our constitution 27 times. Every time we have added a state, we have changed our flag because we put another star on the flag. When it comes to having a legislature that is one house or two, I checked, 1/2 of all the countries in the world have single legislatures. The other half have two legislatures. So it's nothing unusual. As far as the government applying the 2016 law on corruption, what we would expect is that that law will be applied in a fair and objective manner. And I don't believe, as the President himself has told to me, when it comes to justice, it is not a matter for politics, it is a matter for the law and the courts.
سعادة السفير، ظهرتم شخصيا في أكثر من مرة في مناسبات اجتماعية ما اعتبره البعض تغلغلا مريبا في المجتمع وأنه لا يدخل في إطار عملكم الدبلوماسي، بماذا تردون؟
I guess I will plead guilty to having Mauritanian friends and being fascinated by this country and charmed by many Mauritanians I have met. And they, with typical Mauritanian hospitality, have invited me to their homes. I have invited them to mine. My friend, Ambassador Dada in Washington, he has told me that he's made many friends amongst the American people. He invites them to his home. They invite Ambassador Dada to their home. This is a very natural thing. I would never accuse Ambassador Dada of seeking to interfere in America's internal affairs because he has accepted the hospitality of American citizens.
سعادة السفير، في نهاية مأموريتكم ما الذي حققتم خلال تواجدكم لموريتانيا وما هي وجهتكم القادمة؟
Yes, I'm expecting within the next few months, I don't have a date certain, that my wife and I will be sadly leaving Mauritania. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Mike Dodman, who President Trump has nominated to be my successor. President Trump also nominated me to serve as our next ambassador in Djibouti, on the other side of the continent. So both Mr. Dodman and myself are in a process with our Senate. Under our system, the Senate receives the nominations from the President, and the Senate makes the final decision on whether we will be ambassadors or not. So we don't know when the Senate, if the Senate will approve Mr. Dodman and me, and if they do, when that will be. So we do not know the timing. As far as achievements, I would look again at our three goals. Our security partnership is stronger than ever. That includes the military, law enforcement. We have programs working with the prison authorities to improve the management of the prisons. We work with judges and training with the Human Rights Commission. So on the security side, we have certainly furthered and deepened that relationship. On prosperity and commercial affairs, we've seen increases in Mauritanian exports and increases in American exports to Mauritania, both. We are very proud of that. And we are also continuing our large program for youth education, especially vocational education, to improve their chances of getting good jobs. That is our largest development project here. Thirdly, in our relations with the government and civil society on continuing the progress that this government has had in the democratization of the country and addressing some of the severe social issues, we will continue to share ideas, Mauritanian ideas that are useful for solving our problems in the U.S., and maybe some American ideas that would be useful for Mauritanians to consider. We'll keep that respectful exchange of ideas as our approach in that area.
شكرا لكم سعادة السفير الأمريكي في موريتانيا لاري أندري على إتاحة هذه الفرصة.